a tenderness towards their employees. Now we're going to look at the ambiguity tolerant cultures. And this one's a mouthful. Obviously, you heard me stumble over it, but we'll see that what we need to do is look at ambiguity. And ambiguity means uncertainty. So there are some countries and cultures that are very tolerant of high uncertainty. So when there is uncertainty in a situation, they're completely comfortable with it, and it's not a big deal to them. They don't need to know exactly what's going to happen. They will wait to find out. High ambiguity tolerant cultures are Singapore, Jamaica, Denmark, Sweden, Hong Kong, Ireland. The United States actually ranked 11th. So we do have a high tolerance for ambiguity. If you think about this fiscal cliff that we were just talking about, and people were just kind of waiting and waiting, and I think we waited more than a year for some kind of outcome on that, people were okay with it. Yeah, we talked about it, but there wasn't this kind of upheaval that was really making people upset. So if you compare that then to maybe companies like Greece, Portugal, Belgium, Russia, they have a very low tolerance for ambiguity. That means that if they do not know what's happening or there's an uncertain situation, they are very uncomfortable and it makes them very unhappy. And so it affects their communication, obviously. The best thing to do is to follow those cultures' very clear-cut rules for communication. So if we need to make plans this weekend, and I'm dealing with somebody who is from Russia, they were born and raised there, and I've been working with them for some time, and we're going to make plans this weekend, you need to let them know Monday or Tuesday what the plans are, exactly what time you're going to begin your plans, when you're going to end them, what you're going to do. You're not going to call them up on a Friday night and say, hey, you want to go do something this weekend? I'll call you and I'll let you know. That would not go over well with somebody with a Russian background and that kind of cultural teachings. But if you're an American, it's no big deal to call somebody on a Friday night and said, hey, I'll give you a call tomorrow, maybe we can hang out. So it's that kind of how tolerant are we for uncertainty and not knowing what's coming. You can compare yourself to coworkers, people even in your own family, classmates. Some of them have no problem not knowing when the next test is. Other people need to put it on their calendar right away. So it is an individual trait, but it is also taught by our culture collectively. All right, the sixth difference that we're going to take a look at is short-term and long-term orientation. A short-term orientation means we want to establish our goals now, and the results better be here quickly. Long-term orientation culture means we're going to focus on future rewards. So it's okay that we're going to work for a very, very long time, 10, maybe 15 years to make a change and achieve a goal. But here in the United States, certainly you can understand that we are not at all long-term minded. We are short-term minded. So when goals are set at your company, they probably want you to hit those goals by the end of the quarter or the end of the month. When we have goals for a president in our own mind and we say, well, this is what you better do and you better make it happen, we can see that our short-term orientation oftentimes is what's so upsetting to us about what a president did not get accomplished, because it's not that they set the stage for future presidents to make more progress. It's that they didn't do what we expected them to do in those 4 years, or in our case right now, the 8 years that Obama's going to be in office. So very much something that influences how we think, how we communicate with people, and how we just deal with the things that are going on in our culture and in our society. The next cultural difference, and the very last that we're going to talk about, is a new one, and this is the first time that this has been discussed, and it's called the indulgent versus restraint, and the differences that some cultures have with regard to these things. So indulgent cultures would have a lot of freedom, do as you please, that you would have control over your life, that you can make your choices, you can marry who you want to marry, you can go to school where you want to go to school, you can have the job you want to have, doesn't matter if you're a male or a female, you can kind of do whatever you want. And then the other dimension is leisure. How much time do you spend having fun and hanging out? So those are kind of the two dimensions. Cultures that are indulgent lots of freedom, lots of leisure time. On the flip side of that, we have cultures high in restraint. I'm going to read some of these to you. Pakistan, Egypt, Latvia, Albania, Lithuania, Iraq. These are the top 10, some of the top 10. Think about in Iraq, do you have freedom to do as you please? Gosh, no. One wrong move and you can be killed by the government because they feel like you're an infidel. Can you, as a woman, go to school and become a doctor? No, that's not going to happen in Iraq. And that is why so many Middle Easterners want to come to the United States, because they want that life control. Do they have a lot of leisure time over there? No, by no stretch of the imagination do they have a lot of leisure time. They are working all the time. They don't have the modern day conveniences we do. A wife, for example, would spend hours cooking and cleaning. She doesn't have a microwave. She may not have a dishwasher. She may not have a washer and dryer. So obviously they have very much leisure time, very little leisure time. Here in the United States, lots of life control. We can do so many things that we want to do, and also we have so much time to enjoy leisurely things that we enjoy. Okay, so now we're going to look at some principles for effective intercultural communication, and I just want to say that the examples that I was giving for Iraq, I don't want you to think that that is the overarching way that things are over in Iraq. You have to understand that there is very much of Iraq that has been modernized. They have McDonald's there, and not everybody's cooking and cleaning all day, and that's all that they have time to do. There are many Iraqi people that do have modern conveniences. I was speaking more of the lower class, the poor of the poor, the oppressed, that are much more living in a culture of fear, restraint, very little control. But there's obviously wealthy people in Iraq that have a very nice life, but that's not the majority of people. So I just wanted to put that caveat out there, that I do know that there's some differences. I'm just trying to give you examples of how things are different in other cultures than they are in the United States. But they're not generalizations, they're just examples. Okay, we're going to talk about some principles for effective intercultural communication. And this is definitely going to be part of your journal entry. This is where that blue box is, page 42 and 43. So this part of the lecture is going to be important for you to draw information and examples from to support your claims on your journal entry. So educating yourself is one thing that you can do in order to be more effective in speaking with others from different cultures. Best thing that you can do is get books. There's lots of books out there that will give you kind of a synopsis of the cultural differences from a business standpoint. When you travel there, what things should you do? What things should you know? So first off, if you know you're going to be interacting with somebody from a different culture, try to learn about their culture. That would be very important. If you had somebody who was a Hindu that was your new coworker, you would want to go learn something about Hinduism. You could certainly ask them questions, but you may also want to know some information before you even start asking them questions so that you can be sensitive to their culture and not be insulting or insensitive. The next thing you need to do is you need to recognize the differences. There are differences between you and other people from different cultures. There's ways that they communicate that don't make sense to you. It doesn't mean that your way is right and their way is wrong. They're differences, and they're culturally ingrained, and they're very difficult to stop doing. The next thing is within the culturally different groups. So I just gave the example of Hindus. Not all Hindus are exactly the same. I'm sure there's some people that practice Hinduism and they have no problem having a hamburger. So we don't want to say that everybody's the same. We wouldn't also say that all white people are obese and stupid, right? There's a lot of differences within the culture of American people and how we act. It's the same thing that not all Iraqi people are terrorists. It's a small portion of that culture. It's not the majority. And then we also want to recognize that there's differences in meaning. There's differences in meaning in things that we do. And we're talking about words, yes, obviously, but also in people. So if you say the word let's say lunch to a Chinese rice farmer and a Madison Avenue advertising executive, that's what your book gave you for an example, you have to understand that lunch to a Chinese rice farmer means I'm going to go eat a very small cup of rice, but I'm still going to continue to oversee my fields. Where a New York ad exec lunch means we're going to go spend about $150. We're going to wine and dine this account. We're all going to have a great time and we're going to be a big deal. So just in saying that, there's a big difference. I remember back when I was in graduate school, and this had to be, oh my goodness, probably 15 years ago now, I was there with some fellow students, and we were walking along the beach, and there was a dolphin that had washed upon shore, and all of the Americans were so very, very upset that this dolphin was going to die on the shore, and we had to get this dolphin back into the water. So many people were running around trying to get things, beach towels, to push that dolphin back into the water or drag him out to that water so he could get away. Well, my colleagues that, again, were from the Philippines thought it was the strangest thing they had ever seen, because in their culture, if a dolphin were to wash up on shore, they would be overjoyed. That's fast food to them. That means they don't have to go out and fish and capture these dolphins. They're right there. They don't understand the movie Flipper. They don't understand that we just adore dolphins, that they're these beautiful animals that really we put on a pedestal because they're at SeaWorld. I mean, we love these dolphins. It's a huge attraction. To them, it was just food, and it was food that was a blessing because it was right there on the shore. How could you get any easier than that? Why in the world would you turn that away? It just didn't make sense to them. So I had to understand. I couldn't look at them and say, what are you kidding me? It's a dolphin. Get with the program. You're in America now. Because that would have alienated them. That would not have helped me understand their culture better, and it would not have helped them understand our culture better. The next thing you can do is confront your stereotypes. That means that if we have some stereotypes, we need to know what they are and we need to be aware of them. And we need to seriously consider if they are in fact true about that group of people. So if you feel a certain way about African Americans, you should confront your stereotype. If you feel a certain way about Americans, and there's plenty of people out there that don't like Americans. We seem very arrogant. We seem kind of this lazy. We've got so much good stuff. We're just throwing food away and clothes away and money away, and we're just kind of these spoiled people. And that's a stereotype that I've seen many times hurt Americans. If we have stereotypes against Middle Easterners, we need to confront those. We have stereotypes against Native Americans. We need to confront those. There's a lot of times where we just need to understand what they are and then truly do some research to find out, is this truly a realistic stereotype for me to have? Number 4, adjust your communication to the other person. That means you need to make some accommodations and change some of the ways that you're communicating with them. And then finally, you want to reduce your ethnocentrism. And what that means is, ethnocentrism is the tendency to see others and their behaviors through your own cultural filters. So for example, we have a newspaper article that when you read it, you're going to start to recognize some stereotypes. You're going to recognize that you do feel a little bit ethnocentric, and that means that the United States way of doing things and this culture's way of doing things makes sense. It's loving, it's kind, it's logical. But the way that other cultures approach problems in their families just doesn't even seem like it's logical. It doesn't even seem human. And what we need to start doing is say, you know what, there's lots of different ways to go about this. That's not how I would do it, but that's how it is in that culture. And they are certainly within their means to do that. Now, the question then becomes, when you come to the United States, you do have to follow our laws. And our laws very much support our cultural beliefs. So keep that in mind when you're reading that newspaper article that's in this week 2 folder. And keep it in mind when you're making your posts on the discussion board